building a product for developers and DevOps productivity, which is Devtron. Okay. Hello. All right. So I have been giving talks on various Kubernetes core concepts, the solutions to the problems and all. This is the first time I have been asked to give a talk on developers' productivity. The reason for that is my journey of 5 years with Devtron. So I've been involved with Devtron in pre-sales calls. I've been talking to multiple startups, various MNCs, and when I'm talking to them, the problems that they are coming up is cost optimizations. They want to set up security, DevSecOps, and all. So most of the organizations that I go in pre-sales calls, they tell me that they have these problems. None of them, or almost none of them, uh, told me that nobody told me that developers productivity is something that is there in within their organization that can be a problem, right? That's when I thought that nobody focuses on this particular area, because I've been in the industry. I have seen multiple products around Kubernetes and DevOps and developers productivity area, but none of them actually focuses on developers productivity. So to give you a context, I'll just tell you how much a developer's productivity is important. But first, list out all those areas where a developer loses their time when they are working or orchestrating their applications on top of a Kubernetes cluster, or maybe a monolith cluster as monolith architecture as well. So longer build times is one common area. So most of the organizations are using 15-year-old technologies, maybe Jenkins. How many of you are using Jenkins within your organization? Right. So, and then waiting for the functional environments to be set up. So let's say that I want to test out my feature, and for that I need multiple microservices, which is deployed from my feature branch. To set up that environment, it takes a lot of time in most of the scenarios, right? Debugging that goes in these development environments. So of course, when I'm setting up an environment, I have to go through a long process. Multiple microservices have to be installed from various development branches. Some may be installed from the stable branches as well. So there may be configuration issues that can come up. There may be that the wrong image of the container has been deployed in that particular development environment, because of which I'm not able to make my functionality work as it should be, right? So developer loses a lot of time over there as well. The handoff time between the development and the DevOps team. So I think a lot of you have a tough bit going on between DevOps team. In most of the organizations, this communication is not very seamless unless they are on the same platform, right? So, so maybe there are configuration changes that needed to be deployed with those code changes, which were not deployed, and that came up with a production issue. So those kind of things can also be there. And then last and most important point, I would say, is the steep learning curve of Kubernetes itself, right? So it keeps on releasing multiple functionalities. It keeps on updating the API versions. It keeps on deleting and deprecating the API versions as well. So it's really challenging for any developer to keep up with all those changes going around and focus on their core competency, which is actually coding, right? So to give you a context, everyone talks about cost optimization of cloud, right? But nobody talks about developers' productivity. To give you a context, let's say that a developer may have an average in an organization. I'm not talking about major organizations, but on an average, a developer, if we take an average of the entire developers in a particular mid-sized company, an average developer salary is around 20 to 25 LPA. That comes to be around 42 US dollars per hour. And if a developer wastes 1 hour a week, that's equivalent to running a 16 core VM for 2.5 days, almost 2.5 days. Do you get it? So maybe if you have 40 odd developers working in an organization who are wasting 1 hour weekly on any of the issues that were listed on the previous slide, you are running almost 30 16 core VMs needlessly within your organization. You're losing that much amount of money. If that has to be done in respect to the cost optimization, that would have been a fire, right? How we, as a developer's productivity platform, help you mitigate all those problems that I've just showcased you. The first is build time. So at Devtron, we have an infinitely scalable build infrastructure, which we leverage Kubernetes for, to bring on nodes and workers only when you trigger a build, right? And since we are leveraging auto-scaling capabilities of Kubernetes, you have infinitely scalable infrastructure unless you have kept a cap on your cloud side, of course. So some of our customers, they build almost 300 to 400 builds in parallel to set up their ephemeral environments. So they have like a series of 300 odd services for any particular feature test. They need all those 300 microservices to be deployed in a particular namespace. So for that, they build all these images in parallel. 300 to 400 builds are made in parallel and deployed across these ephemeral environments. And then they start out their testing and whatever they want to do with that environment, right? And then we also let you create multi-architecture builds in parallel. So some of these customers also test their microservices for multiple architectures, maybe ARM, AMD as well, right, in parallel. So what we help them do is we help them create multi-architecture container images just on single click, right? You triggered a build and the same tag will be created for ARM and AMD. And then you can utilize the same image on any of these architecture clusters as well, right? And we leverage spot nodes for all these workers that we run. So it is cost effective, of course, while giving you the flexibility of caching all the container images. So it also brings the build time down. The second thing that we help you derive out of Devtron is setting up ephemeral environments, right? So like I talked about that, if I have to test out my functionality and I want that to be deployed across a particular namespace along with multiple other microservices, I can do that on a single click. In the interest of time, I haven't included any sort of live demos, but we also have a booth right across. You can come up at our booth, and I'll show you how exactly you can achieve this using Devtron. You can also build and deploy in bulk with Devtron. So let's say that I want a particular environment to be reset back to my stable branch. I can do that in a few clicks with Devtron. Another thing is the debugging time. So developers lose a lot of debugging time. Some of them do not even get access to the environments where the problem is, and they have to just go through and brush through the logs to figure out what could be the problem within that particular environment, just because they do not have enough access, right? And they do not have all those matrices collated at one single plane. Right? So what we do is we give you access to all those critical metrics at one single point. So you can check the logs of your containers. You can even exec inside the container. So we also give you ephemeral containers. So if your containers are not included with the utilities for debugging, you can even attach an ephemeral container to that particular main container and debug within that particular environment. Right? All those metrics which are captured for your multiple releases, your memory utilization, your throughput, the latency of your application. So all those things are shown at one place so that the developer can make context out of each of these matrices and come up with a solution as soon as possible, thus reducing the downtime. The next thing is the handoff between the development and the DevOps team, of course. So we give you a single pane where you can communicate all those changes that has to go with the release, right? So there may be configuration changes, there may be certain type of release instructions that need to be deployed with a particular release. So you can specify all those configuration changes while creating a release, and any sort of release instructions that needs to be taken care of. You can also just specify while creating a release, and then when the release team is taking care of those things, they can see all those details and they can configure all those configurations accordingly. You can also do that. Then if you are proposing any sort of changes to the configurations, you can also do that. We have an inherent approval mechanism, so any kind of configurations that go in a production environment, they can be approved from a particular team, and then only they can be deployed across a environment. So that can be also done. Then the last point is the learning curve. Of course, most of you may be very flexible with using Kubernetes, but multiple of our programmers or coders, they are not very comfortable with writing manifests, because they tell you, why do I need to write the manifest for each and every technology that wherever they are deploying, right? So whether you are deploying on ECS, whether you are deploying on EKS, they are not very comfortable writing manifests for all those configurations. So what we do is we provide you flexibility, a GUI-driven approach wherein you can actually create the manifest automatically using Devtron. We give you manifest templates which are there with Devtron. So we have deployment, rollout, stateful set configurations that you can use, and then you can go ahead and deploy your microservices in a Kubernetes environment in 5 to 6 minutes without any YAMLs. I think I would end over here. These are some clients which are using Devtron for orchestrating their services on top of a Kubernetes cluster. Not the holistic list, but most of the major clients of Devtron are listed over here. We are also an open source project, of course with limited functionalities. You can also download it across inside your Kubernetes cluster and use it. Thank you.
Have a huge round of applause for Prakarsh. Now I'll request Kapil to give away the memento. Thank you so much, Prakarsh. Have a big hand for Prakarsh once again.